Hello everyone, this is Brian LeDuc, and this is a short update that I am sharing with you. Now I understand that I've been away for a while, and the reason for that is because in my previous updates I realized it was unfair for subscribers that I made announcements and then things kept changing. So what I'm doing now is I am preparing new content, and I'm going to try to have a consistent flow and stick with one thing and just keep a consistent flow going. Otherwise, we're bouncing all around, and it's not fair for people who are following content. So while I am doing that, and while I'm preparing a new video series and new plans, I got a request from someone to make a tutorial on the software Amadine, which is very similar to Affinity Designer. This request was asking how to design a cartoon character using the software. So I decided to make a tutorial to show you my approach on how to do this. Now, when we first open the program, we'll see that we are greeted two different tabs, Recent and Tutorials. Now, if we go into the tutorial section, we'll see that there are some cartoon examples. But the issue that I have is that it does not break down a simple map on how to create the cartoons. So with this example of a dinosaur, for example, the creators already have an idea of what the final result will look like. And this fish over here, it's simple shapes, and this dog over here, they made the fills first and then the outlines. And I want to follow the rules of regular vector design, but I want to know how to map out the character first, because a lot of us beginners may not know what we want the final result to look like. So I'm gonna break everything down from start to finish so we know how to build up to this level of expertise later on. Now you see that I have a file here that I already started called Ashley, so I'm gonna open it. And you'll see here that I have basic rules on how to create a cartoon character. So if I open this parent layer down here, which says reference, I have character guide checked off, and I'm going to check off shape parts also. Now you'll see that I have different colors assigned for the different rules. Now parts is what these shapes are down here: the head, torso, and pelvis. So this is when I just draw the basic construction of a character first, and then I get into the vector design later on. So I'm going to apply these rules to just create the basic outline, and then I'm going to get into the character. And this is the character that we are going to draw, Ashley. But before we start drawing, I'm going to walk you through just some of the basics of Amadine so you understand how to use it. So this is going to be a little tricky because my stylus is not working anymore, and I'm now using my iPad for drawing, which I'm going to show later on. So I'm going to be doing everything with my mouse. So I'm going to take the pencil tool, and the smoothing I suggest to have set to 2 or more, because if I set to 1 and try drawing a line, it gets a little too jaggedy. So I'm going to set the smoothing to 2 instead. And then when I draw, see how it smooths out the circle a little more? So this is what we're going to do. And unlike Affinity Designer, we usually change the brush size up here in the toolbar, but for Amadine we changed the brush size and everything over here. So I'm gonna just change the size to, let's see, maybe 3. I think that's good. And what else I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the gear icon, and I'm going to change the cap to a rounded corner and change the corner to, the cap to rounded edge and the corner to rounded. And if I hold Alt or Option and scroll with my mouse, I can zoom in, and now when I draw, you see how the edges are more rounded now? So I'm going to just draw a circle, and now scroll in. I want these two to connect, so I'm going to just take the node tool, and it snaps when I click and drag, but it doesn't mean that the line is connected. So what I'm going to do is, with the node tool, I can create a bounding box and select the two nodes that I want to connect this line with, and I'm going to click on this button right here, connect the selected points. And now you'll see that these lines are connected. And another thing is, when I draw with a pencil, notice that I cannot continue the path unlike other vector programs. So again, I'm going to take the node tool and connect them. Now, when you want to split a path, even though there is the scissors icon, and even though there are ways to split a path with the pen tool, I find it much easier to just use the knife tool or the eraser tool. And with the eraser tool, I'm going to increase the diameter a bit. Now up here I can increase the diameter, and that's separate from the appearance panel. And see how it just splits like that? Now there's something that you ought to know about. With this shape, see how it's closed? If I try erasing with the eraser tool, this is what happens. So what I'm going to do when I draw the character, closing the paths is going to be the very last thing I do, because I most likely will need to erase a lot, and I want to erase in this fashion rather than this fashion. And the same thing happens with the knife tool. If I slice, the same thing happens. The scissor icon is what will split the path. Now, when I erase, it's different because I just broke the path. Now, let's say I want to have this be blue as well. If I click on this object and then select the eyedropper tool and click blue, I can change it that way. But another way I can do it is with this object selected and click the fill tool. I can click this eyedropper tool, and then I can select anything, and I'll just click on this. Now you'll see that on Ashley there are spots on her skirt, and if I want to do something like that, I'm going to create a pattern rather than to create dots individually. So on this square, I am going to I'm going to click on the fill icon and click on image, and now I'm going to choose an image, and you'll see that I made 3 dots that I exported earlier. And when you export, you have the option to export it with or without a transparent background. And in this case, I created a transparent background. So I'm going to open. Now you see the background color changed. Well, I'll show you more about that later on. And now I'm going to choose tile for the fill type. And now I can scale this. Now you know from my other characters I've created in Affinity Designer how I usually have a shadow effect. Now what I am going to do is I'm going to take the pen tool because this is how I usually create a shadow effect. I'm going to just go around one side of this object. Now, first I'm going to remove the outer glow, and I'm going to remove the stroke, and I'm going to change the fill to black. Now, opposite of Affinity Designer, the shadow object that I'm clipping is usually on top of the circle object, but in this case, this is going to be below the circle object. And I'm going to take away the outer glow for the circle object as well. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select both these paths, and I'm going to click Modify, Make Clipping Mask. Now you'll see that the circle object disappeared, but that's okay, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this clipping mask, select on the shape, I'm going to show the stroke and now the fill, and now I'm going to click on the shadowed object, and now under the fill I'm going to select the fill, and now I'm going to go over here to the opacity. I'm going to change it to 25, and this is how I'm going to create the shading on Ashley. Now, last but not least, let's say we want to have the dots on this object with the shadow. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to create another object. So it's going to be a square in this case, but we have to make sure we move the square in the clipping mask and at the very bottom, so it's going to be below the shadowed object. And now we're going to convert that object into an image. And to do that, we click on the fill object, image, choose image, choose the dots. But now we also want to change the opacity. So under color, bring it to 100. And you'll see that it kind of looks like an egg. And change the fill type to tile. Now we can change the scale down. Now, something you probably noticed with my character art is that the outermost outline is thicker than the inner outlines. And what I usually do is I would click on the parent layer and create a thick outline. But with Amadine, unfortunately, we're not able to make effects on parent layers, and we can only make effects on child layers, and that means the actual vector objects. Okay, now let's get into creating Ashley. So down here with a reference layer, I'm gonna create a new layer by clicking on this plus icon, and I'm gonna double click it, and I'm gonna say, let's see, character outline. And now I'm going to create another layer and move it inside the character outline layer. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to have lines and parts as one layer, and I'm going to have details as another layer, and then outline as another. So for the lines and parts, I'm going to have that layer be called anatomy. The next layer is going to be called details. And the outline is going to be like the final vector work. So I'm not going to do that yet because this is just the character outline. It's kind of like a reference. So I'm going to make Ashley in another layer after that. So right now we're just going to focus on the character outline layer. So under anatomy, the way I draw the map, I'm going to hold Alt or Option and zoom in. So I'm going to take the pencil tool and I'm going to uncheck the fill and bring the stroke up to 3 like I showed before. And now holding the stroke icon, I'm going to take the eyedropper tool, and the first thing I'm going to do is select this green icon. So I want to think of the pose. Now I'm just doing this all from scratch. So I'm going to have kind of a squiggly line like that. So I'm saying that this is the tilt of the character. This is the leaning position. And now I'm going to, let's see, have a line go down. This is the top of her shoulder line. And now I'm going to have another line go up, saying that this is the hip line. Alright, now I'm going to take the cursor tool and just click off. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the stroke tool, and now I'm going to copy the shapes. So it's kind of a scrambled order. I don't do all lines first and then all parts first. I do lines and parts first, and then again to details. Now I'm going to apply these shapes here for this part, the blue shapes. So I'm going to take the circle tool and just create a circle. Not hold shift, I'm going to have it be a little oval, because if you look at her head, it is oval. Now I'm going to rotate this just a bit. And now with her torso, I'm going to take the pencil tool, and I want her torso to be facing this way. Connect, and tilt a little bit. And now the pelvis I'm going to make a little larger. And now the pelvis is going to be sticking forward, so her torso is sticking out, but her pelvis will be coming at us. So kind of like big underwear type shape. Well, more like diaper. And maybe shrink this down just a bit. Her abs will be a little too big in that case. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to take the eyedropper tool, and now I'm going to select this line for arms and legs. So now I want to think of the stance. I think I'm going to do legs first. So that's going to be one leg. Now that's not all of her arm. I'm going to have another shape here because her arm is going to be coming towards the camera. She's kind of like looking very wild and energetic. Right. And I'm thinking this arm might go out a bit. And I have no idea how this is going to come out, really. Take the eyedropper tool. Now I'm going to select this layer, divisions and extensions. So the extension is that this is not the shape we're going to use for our head. So we're going to kind of make a chin line like that. But maybe have it like stretch this down a bit. And now here I'm going to kind of connect to have her belly. And here, come out like that. We want to have just a circle object to show that her arm is sticking out, and this part will be coming down a bit. And here, her arm would come out, and then it would get smaller as it goes outward. Now I'm going to make another circle for her hand, and another circle for her other hand. Now I'm going to just make simple shapes for her feet, and I can redo this later on. Notice how I have a little rounded area on the leg for the calf. Now the reason I do this small reference is because I may not like how everything looks, so this is just a way to kind of play around. So while I'm looking at this, I am going to make some adjustments. So I'm going to select these objects here. I'm going to rotate them this way. Whoop. I'm going to have this foot go out. And I'm thinking this leg needs to come out more like this. And now I'm thinking I gotta rotate the entire character so all the force is on that leg. There, that looks more like an action pose. And now this arm needs to come out just a bit. Hand, I mean. I'm thinking her ab needs to come out that way a little. And it's okay that not all this connects. This is why I like starting with a basic outline first, because then I see where I want to make the changes. Now with this same color, I said divisions and extensions, so now I'm going to use the divisions. Now the divisions mean where I want to divide everything. So here I'm going to have a line come down. So this is what I'm saying, the center of her face, and this is where I want her eyes to be. And now here, kind of want to say like her breasts are going to be kind of like right there. Pelvis is going to be here, or the center. And now here on the hands, I want to have her hands fan out. But I realize that this needs to be rotate it a little more. Set up the thumb is going to be on this side. And here, the finger is going to go that way. And thumb, like that. Neck, and go down, like that. First of all, I'm going to give this a save because I'm loving the way this is looking. This line for fingers. Now, this is under the lines category. So now I'm going to just create lines. Say this is going to be her index finger. This is going to be her middle finger. Ring finger. Pinky finger. And here, I'm going to have them be a little closer to each other because we're not going to be seeing all of her fingers, really. Now this is going to be the closest, just like that. And you know what? I think I'm actually going to create another anatomy layer. On this one, I am going to use the eyedropper tool, click Full Anatomy, scroll in. And that's it for this video. The next one will be on character details. You can click on the video to the right to see the next part. Thank you for watching.